meeting will please come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Bunton.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Menser. Here. Raker.
Here.
We need a motion to excuse Mayor Dempsey and Commissioner Blash.
So
Mayor
moved.
Pro Tem Blash.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Okay, announcements, acknowledgements, and communications and reports. Are there any tonight? Nothing?
I do have something actually that I'd like to go over, the long-awaited fire department and sheriff quarterly report information. I had mentioned that the sheriff's department was having a bit of an issue from a technical standpoint. They had upgraded their systems, and because of that, they're having a hard time retrieving information. That they had really become pretty adept at providing a good report for us, but unfortunately they're still having issues with that. So I did get a manual report, if you will, from our substation that I'll go over a few of the facts from, but I'll start with the fire department. From January 1st, 2015 through March 31st, 2015, the Mount Clemens Fire Department had 896 responses, 457 medical calls, 127 service and good intent calls, 59 false alarms, 26 fire runs, and 24 hazardous condition runs. Represents about a 10% run increase from the same quarters of 2013 and 14. There was automatic aid provided to Harrison Township Fire Department 40 times. The Mount Clemens Fire Department had four structure fires within the city and 11 structure fires outside the city, in which we provided mutual aid, including 2 second alarm fires in Harrison Township, 1 second alarm in Chesterfield Township, and a 3rd alarm in Fraser. Also, a little bit of information that was provided. 14 fire code inspections were performed, and Mount Clemens Fire Department, as been mentioned previously, received a grant and has placed into service 20 new self-contained breathing apparatus with masks and 40 new 45-minute bottles. This represents a significant upgrade from what we have been using, as the SCBAs we had in the past were at the end of their life limit. So that's the fire department report. From the sheriff's department, we had a listing of activity, which was pretty long and lengthy and detailed. There was a total of 816 cases that were reported on the report, which averages out to about 270 plus per month. And then I'll give a couple of the items that were detailed out. There were 30 different abandoned auto claims, or about 10 per month. There were 40 assault and battery issues, which averaged out to about 13 or so per month. 31 disorderly conduct cases. Driving with license suspended, there were 27. Various forms of larceny added up to about 27 for the 3-month period, which is about 9 per month. And lastly, there were 39 traffic stops, which is about 13 per month. So that was just a flavor of some of the activity that was performed by the Sheriff's Department for the City of Mount Clemens, and that's all I have for those reports.
Thank you. Is there a
I'm sorry, one more thing.
Oh.
Sorry. I got a late notice today, actually, from the county regarding Michigan Heat Awareness Day being this coming Friday, the 22nd. Basically, that's an effort to educate people about the issues that come with high temperatures in association with high humidity rates as well. And each year in Michigan, there are 5 deaths that result from these kind of conditions, and hundreds of heat-related illnesses also take place, and people suffer from those symptoms because of the high heat and high humidity. So in an effort to raise awareness, there is a Heat Awareness Day on Friday, May 22nd, and we will have something on the website with an address for more information on, could be today. So if anybody is looking for more information on that, you can check it out on our website at citymountclemens.com. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Is there a proclamation recognizing Safe Boating Week? It's on the agenda. No?
There is somebody here.
Is there anybody here to accept it?
Tom Fisher's here.
Yes.
It's not signed, so I have to get them up on new copy
Oh.
with their signature.
Oh, okay. You want me to
Yeah.
send it?
No, it's got her wrong sign on it. We'll get a new version of it. We were expecting Mayor Pro Tem Gary Blash to be with us this evening, so we're going to get a corrected print for you.
This is the proclamation. Whereas the Mount Clemens Power Squadron was established in 1951 and is a unit of the United States Power Squadron, and a member of District 9, which is responsible for 23 squadrons throughout Michigan and Indiana. And whereas the Mount Clemens Power Squadron, led by Commander Pam Horner, is a nonprofit, all-volunteer teaching organization with an active membership of over 120 members, whose primary function is to promote safe boating through education, practice, and awareness. And whereas recreational boating is fun and enjoyable, and we are fortunate that we have sufficient resources in and around our community to accommodate a wide variety of pleasure boating demands. And whereas, while being a marvelous source of recreation, boating to the unprepared can be a risky sport, and not knowing or obeying the nautical rules of the road or choosing not to wear a life jacket can quickly lead to tragedy. And whereas on average 700 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, and nearly 70% of these are fatalities caused by drowning. And whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, equipment, or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters Therefore, I, Gary Blash, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Mount Clemens, on behalf of Mayor Dempsey and the City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 16, 2015 through May 22, 2015 as National Safe Boating Week in the City of Mount Clemens, and urge all our citizens to support the goals of the North American Boating Campaign, not only this week, but also throughout the entire year. Furthermore, I urge all those who boat to practice safe boating habits. Boat smart, boat safe, wear it. Dated May 18, 2015. Now, shall I give him this or wait until we have seen?
We'll replace it for him and get it to him.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
You know where to find us.
Adoption of the agenda. Denise?
I would like-
Commissioner Menzer, sorry.
I would like to move item 10F from the consent agenda to 9F.
That's the adoption concerning the Macomb County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Yeah, the hazardous mitigation plan.
Okay. We don't need a second for that? Okay. And we need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Hill,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, now is time for public participation. You may come forward and speak. Please please give your name and address first and limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Dave Sutton, 100 Lincoln. Can you tell me exactly, Ms. Flutie, on exactly what is the percentage of non-taxable properties in the city? Is it 47, 48%, 49?
Well, we've always had the
Excuse
last
me,
year.
the questions are supposed to be directed to the chair.
Okay, well, and answer the question, please.
Well, I'm going to defer to the city manager.
Yeah, a real quick answer on that.
Pardon me?
The real quick answer on that is that it's always been portrayed as about 46% based on the taxable value of the properties. It's not on the number of properties, but the taxable value of the properties is about 46%. That is untaxable.
Okay, in that line of questioning, is there anything that the city can do to cap that percentage where it doesn't go beyond 46 or 48%? Because we're going to be the ones eventually who are going to be paying for it, like we have already. I mean, why are we at the point where it's 46% now?
Well, I think part of that is that there's a large number of or a large amount of property owned by the county, as well as schools and churches.
I understand that, and the county keeps buying up more of our properties in the city, diminishing our tax base.
Can anyone answer that question?
Well, one of the difficulties is that they're not our properties. They're owned by other entities and other individuals. So we really have no authority to dictate who someone can sell their property to.
Okay, so you're telling me that
Well,
they can do what they want to, and we on the other end are the ones that suffer from it.
well, if they qualify as, you know,
Is
for a
that a-
nonprofit, I'm
is-
just saying.
I
you
understand.
can't
Is that a true
dictate to-
statement?
Yeah, you can't
Okay, thank
dictate to private property owners who they're going to sell their property to. That's, as long as it meets zoning and other criteria.
So, in other words, it's another time for us in the barrel. Thank you.
I was going to wait till later, but I may as well get on one of my favorite harps. As I don't know if Mr. Sutton, he's been
Excuse me,
busy.
you need to give your name and
Gloria
address.
Haller, 260 Cass. Sorry.
Thank you.
Your Honor. I have said and said and said and said until I'm sick of saying it, and I'll say it again. We need to tax the county, and you tax the county by having the city income tax. The county gobbles up our property, gobbles up our services, and you know, they just kind of, nah. Their payroll, last I checked, is 33.6 million in it. Do the arithmetic, it's not math. 1/2 of 1%, wouldn't we be sitting good? And you'd be off the roofs of the old and poor. Try to get that moving, okay? Now, I was a little disturbed by some of the remarks made at the last meeting, that emergency meeting we had on Monday. For instance, the city manager was fluffing off these hidden raises by saying, well, it's like 1% across the board. No, it's not. And if you compare last year's budget and this year's, it's more 4 to 24%. No wonder the page was hidden. As a result of that, I have FOIA'd the individual pay records, compensation records from the contracts for those people, and I will come up with the arithmetic myself. I'm told the FOIA is now ready. I'll have it ready at the next meeting. It wasn't any 1%. And I don't believe in covering up a stink with perfume or lies. Now, talk about overworked employees. Do you know how many by contract, how many days off they have? I mean, if their aunt has a double zip, they get a paid day off. Maybe they'd be less overworked if they worked more and were paid less to stay home. They're adequately compensated. Don't even talk about it. And you're talking about, oh, they need equipment. Oh, I know. The DPW is in dire shape, but you got to present it, not the union way. You got to present it to them as normal people do. You got a bowl here and it's got money in it. That's for you and the equipment. The more you take out of that bowl for you and your pay, the less equipment you're going to have. It's up to you. But no, we got to keep abiding by all these promises that the union makes. They're going to live free and forever, and then we got to pay the freight. No, we're not going to do that. We're tired of it. And that's one reason I wanted the millage to go down, so we'd have a bankruptcy, rip open the contracts, start getting the stuff down to reality. But maybe it'll happen anyway. In the paper, quoted Mr. Blash as saying it would take courage tonight to vote to pass the budget as it is. No, it would take courage to show some fight in the face of all this BS you're being fed, that unless people get out and get the facts for you, sometimes you don't even know things. It's unfortunate. And then, based on what I had said at the last meeting, I'd like a gone date for Ms. DeLugie, please.
Anyone else?
My name is Dave Schneider, 69 North Walnut. DDA member, longtime Mount Clemens resident, grew up here. And frankly, I'm going to say this time of year again for the DDA to get kicked around. Our budget was reduced by 2/3. On top of that, the DDA has reached in their funds and done road repair and electric bills, and I can't even count all the things, not in our preview, that we've helped the city with. Every year we have to go through this. Now, instead of doing that, maybe our city council people should show up to a DDA meeting once in a while, come into our stores and talk to us. I own the second largest retail store in Mount Clemens. Most of you have never been inside of it and have no idea what we sell, with the exception of maybe Lois. The reason the DDA is still functioning is because their members, their board members, have reached in their pocket. Steve Saft has spent so much time and money out of his pocket, I can't count it. Paul does the same thing, I do the same thing. Mickey does the same thing. If you add it up, you'll get the facts tonight on what the DDA has done with the city money, helping the city, but I will tell you right now that if you add up what the DDA board members have kicked in the last year, it's over $100,000, I guarantee it. And that's a low estimate. Every time there's an event down here, every time there's something, the city needs something, Paul reaches in his pocket, I reach in my pocket, Steve does more than we can count. And I'm going to tell you right now, every one of you should go up and shake Steve's hand and thank him for what he does for the city. Because the day he retires from the DDA board, it's a sad day for the city. And I will say one more thing. New Year's Eve in Never Never Land, the city draws thousands of people. I've yet to see a city council member at it. When I did the Santa for Fraser for their tree lighting, the city council was there, the DDA was there, and the mayor was there. How many of you have shown up for our city council? We had a joke the other day in a meeting. One of our restaurant owners said, if we give the city council 99% off, you think they will ever come in our restaurant? You guys have no idea what's in your city. You don't shop down here. You don't come in our stores. You don't support your downtown. And rather than kick the DDA, come to a meeting. Come to one meeting a year. Walk in our stores and say, Dave, what are your concerns? And walk to other people. I own 2 businesses in town. I'm debating opening a 3rd. I'm also debating an opening somewhere else. If there's no DDA, I guarantee it won't be in this town. I employ 40 people. I pay more taxes than the county building, which is a joke. But it's time for you guys to come down and talk to us and quit kicking the DDA. And I'm telling you, you guys need to shake Steve's hand, because if we lose that man, you've lost a hell of a guy for the city of Mount Clemens.
Thank you.
Laura Fournier, 70 Lodwook, and I would also like to say Steve Saft deserves a lot of credit. I know right now he's actually looking to build a house in the city of Mount Clemens. How many of those do we have? Not too many. I'm up here because I know we've passed around the PowerPoint and we're going to go through the budget thing again. And I know that you've carefully researched everything, and nowhere did it say that you would raise the entire 5.2 mils, this or whatever it is, this budget. But I can say with absolute certainty that one member of this commission and the previous city manager both said it doesn't have to go up that much. And I remember one of them with the city commissioner person, there was a guy standing next to me and he said, yeah, well, you just wait and see. And he was right. There was, no, actually it was a man. There are fixed income people in this city that your small numbers that you keep touting and saying it's only 38% of this number, it will hurt. I know 2 women in the city that I help with their property taxes every single year because they're on a fixed income. They can't afford a $300 increase. However, we can let the sidewalk issues go, we can let all the other city services go, and say how overworked everyone is. If you want some sympathy for that, I've offered my services free. And you said, no, thank you. I know others who have offered their services for free, and you have said, no, thank you. I could do accounting, Marilyn, if you need help. I was a chief financial officer. If you have always said no, if you don't do something different, if you don't start standing up for something, we're going to continue doing the same old thing, the same old way. And you don't have to look at me, Mr. Brown, but this is the way it has been. You've got to do something different. And I hope you will seriously consider this budget as a good starting point.
My name is Richard Block. I live at 207 Cambridge. And I was here 2 weeks ago and made a few comments concerning the budget proposal as I understood it. The day of the work meeting that was scheduled for last week, I happened to run across it simply because I made a phone call and stumbled up on the information. I prepared a statement, a written statement, because I didn't anticipate being here then, but I had to change my schedule to get here so I could read my statement. And some subsequent comments to my statement took into call some of the facts some of the figures that I put out there as facts. Now, I got out of school a long time ago, but when you take a millage that's at 13.7 and you increase it to 20, that's an increase of 6.3 mils. That works out to be 45.9%. I don't care how you cut it, whether you use a paper and pencil, a calculator, a slide rule, and a abacus, no matter what you use, it comes out to be 45.9 every time. That's what you want to raise the millage, 45.9%. That's not the tax dollars, that's the millage. And subsequent to that, during some of the council discussions last week at the work meeting, there were many comments made. I think every commissioner made a comment or two or three about, well, we need to look at this, we need to look at that. We've got a roof that needs to replace. And I'm quite sure that everyone that spoke made mention of something that was in fact true. I guess my question would be, what have we been doing all this time to let these things get so bad? I mean, we had a kitty with money in it 3 years ago. 2 years ago, it went down. It went down again last year. It's in the negative this year, and you're going to try to recoup the whole thing in 1 year by increasing the millage by 45%. Give us a break here. I mean, like the last lady said, put out a call to ask for some help. I spent 40 years fixing machines. I know quite a bit about preventive maintenance. It's not difficult. Read the owner's manual. You can set up a predictive maintenance schedule on any piece of equipment. Any piece of equipment you buy, you get an owner's manual for it. If you don't, shame on you. It's not hard to do. And I'm just a poor old electrician, but I know how to do those things.
Anyone else? Okay, moving along. Administrative responses to issues or questions raised during previous meetings.
Thank you. The first thing I had on there was regarding a Headley rollback question that was raised at a prior meeting. A resident inquired about what impact the Headley would have on our budget for fiscal year 2016. The fact of that matter is that the city's millage rate for fiscal year 2016 is not subject to the Headley rollback process, basically due to the fact that residents just passed a charter amendment raising the maximum millage rate to 20 mils. So whatever we choose to set it at, it would not be subject to a rollback if we went to the maximum because of the fact that the voters just at the last election approved going to up to the potentially 20 mils. In other words, because of the recent weigh-in by the voters, a Headley rollback is not in play for the first year of the assessment after the election process. Keep in mind that the city has not experienced sufficient increases in property tax values recently to trigger Headley rollback processes anyway. So again, the first year a Headley rollback would affect the millage rate maximum is in fiscal year 2017, and that's only hypothetically depending on what happens in terms of the increase in property valuations. Secondly, there were some items brought up about various property issues. And during the course of that conversation, a property owner that was bringing up a compliment to the city in terms of taking care of the cleanup of a property on Walnut and Court. Somebody followed up on that by stating that there were other properties with issues in that area. The city is aware of those properties in that area which fit that general description. In fact, there are several properties that are in the foreclosure process currently, and the city has also completed a board up of one of those properties in the recent past as well. We continue to monitor those properties and others like them with an eye towards keeping proper code enforcement actions in place and protecting public health and safety. The last item that I had for administrative responses related to the Jermaine Jackson Community Center. Mayor Pro Tem Blash had raised a concern about the maintenance of that facility. There does exist an agreement with the school district for the facility and associated maintenance. The city is to conduct an exterior inspection this week of May 18th, and depending on the outcome of that inspection, we'll proceed with appropriate action in terms of communicating with the school district about the property. And that's all I had for administrative responses this week.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the May 4th and May 11th meetings.
So moved.
Support.
Menzer,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes. Okay, agenda item 9A, adoption of the budget appropriations resolution and the millage rates. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the millage rates requested for the 2015 property taxes and adopt the budget appropriation resolution for the fiscal year 2015-2016.
And in lieu of...
Did we have a second?
I'm sorry, didn't cut you off.
Support.
Sorry.
Okay.
In lieu of the couple of paragraphs that I have on the agenda item, I was going to go through the PowerPoint that was referenced here a little bit earlier during the citizens' communications. Prior work session, I went over this kind of content without the benefit of having it in a PowerPoint, and Commissioner Hill asked that I put that into a formal document and have it available at this meeting, so that was made available to people in the audience this evening, and we'll go through it. So basically, starting with the fact that the city has an established process that we follow. The city manager is to recommend an annual budget, which then is subject to review and approval by mayor and commission, with adoption to take place by the third week in May, according to the charter. There's a larger environment that's in play related to the budget decisions that the city's undertaking. There's the Great Recession that we've gone through. There's reductions in revenue sharing payments that have taken place since 2000 to the tune of about 40%. There's impact on property tax collections because of reductions in values of property in the city of Mount Clemens, which are down by about 32% over the past several years. Local factors have also come into play during our budget process. The city has been under financial stress for many years. The maximum millage rate in the city of Mount Clemens is less than most cities in the past, at 15 versus 20 typically for cities. City of voters did approve a charter amendment at the August 2014 election, which raised the charter maximum from 15 to 20 mills. The proposed budget information that we're presenting to the mayor and commission this evening reflects no salary increases. The budget includes $50,000 for an enhanced sidewalk code enforcement program, and it also reflects administration's recommendation to take the maximum millage rate to 20 mills. There's also some capital improvement information, which I'll cover in a later slide that I'll go over towards the end of the presentation. Some additional information on that 20 mill decision that was made by city administration. The total proposed city millage is sitting at 22.1274, which reflects several pieces of different taxation. 20 mills for general operations. That's what was subject to the charter amendment, where we had a vote that increased it from a maximum of 15 to a maximum of 20. So where the real change is in that general operations millage, recommended at 20 mills. There's also a .9137 mil for pensions, a .9137 mil for dial-a-ride, 0.3 mils for sanitation, and there is a reduction in the millage that we collect of .148. There was a prior collection of a promotional millage that was allowed under a public act that the city had collected that was eliminated from the current budget that's recommended tonight. So the maximum that was allowed, as sort of was mentioned earlier, the current rate was 13.7097 was the maximum millage rate for operations for the city. Going to 20 is an increase of 6.2903. However, when you factor in that elimination of that .148, the increase in city millage is actually 6.1423. What's the percentage increase of this tax increase? Some claim it's 38%, some say it's 46%. And when you're really talking about the tax increase, you're not talking about just the city portion, you're talking about your entire taxes that you're paying on your property in the city of Mount Clemens as a homeowner. City homeowners pay various millages, county, schools, library, city, and et cetera. The prior total of mills paid in the prior year was 46.8612. That is increasing to 53.0035 if nothing else changes, and I don't know for sure if anything else will change. But the stuff that the city controls is going up by that 6.1423, bringing it up to 53.0035. If you take that figure, you divide it by the old figure of 46.8612, the increase in your taxes is in the neighborhood of about 13%. Now, that does not factor in any increases in your property's value, doesn't factor in what other taxing jurisdictions might do on their own millages. That's beyond the city's control or knowledge. But based strictly on our action, it's about a 13% increase on your tax bill. Some residents are questioning the cost-cutting efforts of the city of Mount Clemens. The city has cut expenses by nearly 33%, or $4.3 million, during the time period of 2005 to 2012. And I'm using the numbers from the information that was provided in association from the charter amendment there, or with the charter amendment, just because I don't want to throw different numbers out there and update those numbers. So I'm using information from basically August of 2014. Full-time employees have been reduced from 159 in 1999 to 65 currently. That's a reduction of 60%. The city has eliminated an entire department. The Parks and Recreation Department does not exist in the city of Mount Clemens. We also eliminated our police department and contracted with the sheriff, which is about $1 million per year in savings that we've experienced since that time. Now, some additional analysis of that cost-cutting effort by the city of Mount Clemens. City expenses in relation to income on a per capita basis. So in other words, taking into account how much the city spends on services and then factoring in how much the people of the town make on a per capita basis. When you take that figure and compare it to other communities, the city of Mount Clemens in 2013 was lower than 8 cities that were already under an emergency financial manager. So those communities were having the equivalent of arms and legs chopped off to balance their budget. And the city of Mount Clemens still had a lower rate of taxation, if you will, in terms of the expense on city services in relation to per capita income. The DPS has 5.5 fewer employees than they did previously. The fire department has no chief, has no inspector, and has 1 less firefighter than it used to. Also, that contract that I mentioned with the sheriff department has been reduced by 1 sheriff deputy during the last several years as well. So I think the city of Mount Clemens has demonstrated a real willingness to take some very difficult decisions to cut costs. I don't think you're going to find any community in the area that has eliminated their police department and subcontracted with the sheriff's department, plus eliminated their Parks and Recreation department. I'm confident in saying I don't think you're going to find another community anywhere near the city of Mount Clemens that has done that. I don't think you can challenge the amount of effort that the city of Mount Clemens has done in cutting expenses, and I take no credit for that. Probably nearly 100% of that was before I started with the city. It does reflect well on the willingness of this city to address its financial situation and take difficult decisions and make them. On the revenue side of things, just to keep it in perspective as well, I mentioned earlier state revenue sharing is down by 40% since 2000. That's 14% of our revenues. Property taxes make up about 60% of our revenue, and I mentioned earlier they're down about 32%. So if you add those two up, it's about 75% of our revenues have been cut somewhere between 32% and 40%. The city's been in a very difficult financial environment, and because of that, it's had a very difficult situation in terms of making budgets and making things add up over the years. The proposed budget does indeed add to fund balance to the tune of about $225,000. However, that projected fiscal year 2016 fund balance will still be far below the fund balance that we had just 3 years ago. And beyond that, you have to recognize that as a business, the city has to have some ability to address its capital needs. We have to maintain our ability to provide high-quality services. We cannot continue to neglect capital needs. We cannot continue to apply Band-Aids to things that need to be replaced and or fixed completely indefinitely. Leaking roofs must be replaced. They can't continue to be patched forever. 30-year-old vehicles must be replaced. They're going to break down permanently at some point in time. And the city DPS department has multiple vehicles that are 30-some years old. Can't continue to operate with those kind of vehicles and those kind of ages. And our sewer and road systems must be addressed. We've got combined sanitary and storm sewer systems that need to be replaced. Those kind of costs are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and many times millions of dollars a year, and the roads are just the same way. Those are very expensive fixes, and those things need to be taken care of, otherwise they'll continue to get worse and continue to get more expensive to fix and repair. Some examples of some capital needs within the city. The fire department roof, I just authorized another several $1,000 patch to that roof. That was done in the prior year as well. This is an annual occurrence and will be an annual occurrence so long as we're lucky and the roof doesn't fail completely. But a replacement of that roof is $130,000 as a projected cost. The air conditioning system at the City Hall has been factored to be about a $190,000 item to replace. Right now, the city's using a piece of equipment that, I kid you not, the gentleman that provided it to the city dug it out of his basement, basically, or a garage somewhere where it had been sitting for years, brought it to the City Hall because he was interested in the city of Mount Clemens and trying to come up with a cost-effective solution for our problem at the time, and put it in, retrofitted it to the city's system, and that's what we've been using for a very long time, and it was on borrowed time when it started. A replacement cost on that's about $190,000. In the city DPS, 2 plow trucks and a bucket truck, all about 30 years old, add up into the neighborhood of $300,000 to $400,000, depending on current quotes. Also, we have a BSNA software system that we currently utilize. The old system is so old it's no longer supported, and we've been told it will not be supported. If it ever fails, you're going to be done. We're not going to do anything to fix it. You need to upgrade to the new system, which is bsna.net. That cost of $40,000 is reflected in the current budget as well. So from there, we talked about some millage scenarios and provided some summaries to the mayor and commission. At 18 mills, the city continues to use fund balance by hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. If we go at 18 mills, we're in nearly the same situation we used to be, just at a lesser extent, but we're still spending more than we take in, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. At 19 mills, within 3 years, the city is again using fund balance to make our ends meet, and to meet our obligations. 20 mills is the only scenario where the city does not spend into fund balance and actually has the ability to put a few dollars away, but more importantly, has the ability to do a capital improvement program and to address some of the longstanding needs that the city has, and to maintain our ability to continue to provide services to residents, businesses, and visitors. So additional investments that could be done at 20 mills and are included in the budget, in fact, that's presented to the mayor and commission tonight. In the administration side of things, over $100,000 is factored into the capital improvement program for administration. This includes that BSNA software upgrade that I mentioned of $40,000, and it also includes a $70,000 conversion to a new system, voice over IP system for our phone systems. And if anybody has been trying to reach the DPS recently, in the last couple of weeks, we literally had an outage on our phone system at the DPS that lasted in excess of a week because of the inability to find parts and or the inability to figure out what the issue was with a system that is far beyond its useful life. So that $70,000 would cover a citywide upgrade to the latest technology for our phone systems. The DPS has about $400,000 included. That would include one of those 30-year-old trucks that I mentioned, a bucket truck, which is one of the more busy vehicles that the DPS operates, and also $100,000 in local road repairs and $100,000 in major street repairs as well. Community development has about $100,000 earmarked for additional staffing to enhance the ability to address economic development. That was an issue that was raised at our last work session by City Commission, and it is something that the City Administration has wanted to make a priority. There's 2 positions in community development that will allow Brian Tingley more time to address economic development issues, and also directly staff a position that would act as a coordinator liaison between the city and the Downtown Development Authority, and enhance coordination and working together between those 2 bodies. And the last thing I'll mention is the Utilities Department, $25,000, pretty small item in the grand scheme of things, for a wastewater treatment plant replacement pump. Now, getting back to the city informational campaign for the charter amendment, which has been discussed a few times, notwithstanding what people have said publicly, the fact of the matter is the city produced multiple pieces of documentation that were in writing prior to the charter amendment election. 3 of them that I'll point out were a brochure that was handed out, a July, August, September 2014 Clementine's newsletter, and a PowerPoint package that was used in presentations both at commission meetings as well as at other places throughout the city when people asked for those kind of presentations. In each of those documents, there is truth. The city did in fact state that if we did get the charter amendment approved to go up to a maximum of 20, that was indeed a maximum, and the city could choose to levy less. That's a simple disclaimer of what the truth is, both after the charter amendment election and before the charter amendment election. We were not required to levy the maximum charter millage that was available to us before the election, which is what we were doing. 13.7097 was the maximum millage that was available to the city. So we had levied the maximum in the past. We're not required to do it at this point in time either. That's the truth. And that was discussed in all of those documents that I mentioned. However, each one of those documents, some of them only once, others multiple times, provided different pieces of analysis about how you could consider what passing the charter amendment would mean to you as an individual homeowner. And every single piece of documentation always and only provided an analysis at 20 mils. There was never any discussion of 19 mils, 18 mils, 17 mils, or any other millage. Every single time, the analysis and the illustration that was provided was at 20 mils, consistently and across the board. And in fact, I jokingly say this, if you do a search on Mount Clemens Charter Amendment, the first item that will come up will be a July 2014 PowerPoint presentation that reflects all of those same facts. And if it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right? I say that jokingly. But that is out there. We haven't changed it. If you do a search on that right now, the first item that will come up will be that charter amendment educational piece that talks about 20 mils as the cost illustration of what could happen under this charter amendment. So the last thing I'll say on a cost analysis standpoint, the average home in the city of Mount Clemens is valued at $35,000. That figure was relatively simple in how we came up with it. You took the total residential property valuation, divided it by the number of residential properties, and came up with a figure of $35,000. So the quote-unquote average city home in the city of Mount Clemens is valued at about $35,000 as taxable value. The city millage increase is 6.1423 mils that's proposed tonight. The cost to the average homeowner is therefore 35 times that 6.1423, or approximately $215. Now, when you talk about the difference between 20 mils and some other millage rate, the only millage rate that I came up with where we were basically still close to meeting costs and not spending into fund balance at a pretty high rate was 19 mils. So the difference between 19 mils and 20 mils, you take that 1 mil rate and you multiply it by the $35,000 in taxable value, it's $35. That's the difference in taxation between a millage rate where the city still in the short run is spending into fund balance, or at 20 mils where the city does not spend into fund balance over the forecast period of time and has capital monies available for improvements. So that's the difference, $35 between those two scenarios. And based on the information provided in those documents that were put out in association with the charter amendment, the average tax bill will still be about 15% lower than the average tax bill in Macomb County for a city of Mount Clemens taxpayer. So that's all I was going to talk about in terms of the presentation. Just as a summary of the budget that's before you, the revenues total $10,286,330. Expenditures total $10,060,000, or $10,060,719. As I mentioned earlier, that allows for a contribution of fund balance in the first year, if everything goes as expected, of about $225,000, as well as that capital improvement program that I mentioned. So that's the information that I was going to provide this evening, and other than that, I'd open it up for the commission to have a discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brown. Discussion, questions from commissioners? Commissioner Menzer?
So I have a little bit of a lengthy thing here. We have now received 3 different budget documents. The original one in this book on 4/2, we received this document, the second one dated May 8th, and then the final one dated May 14th. And so I kind of sat down and put all 3 of them next to each other. And there have been changes in the third document that sometimes are not noted in the first nor the second document. And so I have some questions about things like that. In the spreadsheet that's labeled personnel under salaries and wages, in the first document, it was originally capped for 2013 at $46,000. In the second document, it went to $98,727. And in the third document, it's the same, which is an increase of $52,757. Now, I did ask our finance director about that, and she said that it was added into the budget for an HR director position, and you know, I was a little perplexed by that. In the inspection department, in the spreadsheets in the inspection department, it still includes a $3,000 increase or $1,000 per inspector. The original document had $156,000 originally, up to $173,000, and all three budget documents continue to include that $1,000 each per inspector. In the second document, in the original document under pump station on page 174, wages and salaries were $22,960. In the second document, they're the same. In the third document, there's an increase, actually, the pump station isn't included in the third document, but there is still an increase in there of $2,960. In community development, under salaries and wages, we've kind of gone back and forth, and let me state that I believe with all my heart that we need an economic developer in this city. We need aggressive business attraction and aggressive business development. But in the first document, the wages and salaries were $241,735. In the second document, it was decreased by $8,453 to $233,282. But in the third document, it went up to $293,282, which is an increase in $60,000. In building improvements, in the first document, there were none. In the second document, there were none. In the third document, there was $70,000. So I'm going to assume that's the VoIP system?
Correct.
Under building improvements?
Right.
In local street revenue, in the third document, there's the transfer in of the $50,000. I'm assuming that is, it's not in the first document or the second document, so I'm assuming that's the sidewalks?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay. Under local street construction, in the first document, it says $5,000. In the second document, it says $5,000. In the third document, it says $55,000. Am I to assume that that's the moving in and out of the $50,000 for sidewalk, or what is that under local street construction?
Correct. So it's
Okay.
transfers in now.
Under dial-a-ride, wages and salaries, in the first document, it says $64,200. In the second document, $63,000. And there is no third page, or no page in the third document for that. The 2015 projections for that was $60,500. And in fact, in the third document that we were provided, dated May 14th, there is no new spreadsheet for major streets, no spreadsheet for dial-a-ride, no spreadsheet for the sewer fund, no spreadsheet for the water fund, no spreadsheet for the sanitation fund, no spreadsheet for DDA, and no spreadsheet for the ice arena. So I couldn't go through and compare the first budget to the second budget to the third budget. In the motor pool fund, under general revenue, in the first document, there were no transfers from the general fund. In the second document, there were no transfers from the general fund. But in the third document, there was $162,750 transferred from the general fund. So I didn't know what that was. And then I went further, and in the motor pool fund under vehicles, in the first document, $40,000, second, $40,000, third document, $202,750, which is an increase of the $162,750. So what is that money moving in and out of those funds?
That's the budget truck that I mentioned other than DPS. That's the cost
The
of
bucket
that.
truck?
Yes, that's the bucket truck, if I said it wrong. That's the cost of the bucket truck that I mentioned in the earlier part of the presentation. That's $162,750 is the current estimate on that truck.
Do we want to address?
On the community development side, here you mentioned the increase from 233 to 293. I also mentioned during the presentation the two positions that were in there, one of which is an economic development manager with the costs estimated at $60,000 for salary and benefits. So it's not a you know, it's an economic development manager position. That's how we're envisioning that position. So.
Okay.
And then one more thing, back to what you were talking about, the HR director position that you mentioned. and how that was in there. If you, at one of our prior work sessions, it was discussed at a pretty lengthy rate there about potentially adding additional resources into human resources. I wouldn't call it a director position because we're not going to get a director for that cost. That's just another staff person that would assist with the day-to-day work in the HR department.
So if we hire an HR person, an additional HR person, are we going to eliminate the $17,000 that we pay the PM group to administer our insurance?
No, I wouldn't think you're going to be able to get that level of expertise on that. Marilyn could talk me out of it if she wants to, but no, I don't see that being something that would go away. The amount of work that the PM group has put in our current situation is pretty heavy, pretty staggering. Multiple staff people spending an awful lot of time on that, and that's with people that have been spending their whole career doing insurance administration. So I wouldn't expect that like a human resources generalist or somebody like that would have the ability to replace that kind of expertise. Perhaps lessen the use of it, but not replace it.
So let's address the $1,000 per inspector increase.
And
the inspectors are contractors, and in the community development budget, that was their increase for their contract inspectors.
Recently, I had my brand-new $5,620 furnace inspected. Now, I have nothing but kind words to say for the two inspectors that came to my home. The electrical inspector, in and out, great, did a thorough job, explained some things to me, pointed out a couple of old Comcast wires that ran through the ceiling. I don't have cable. He gave me some advice on removing those. He was great. Very friendly, very professional. The mechanical inspector that came, same thing. Very great, very professional, very nice, very thorough, I thought, in his inspection. And I really wanted that because it blew my mind to spend that much on a furnace. So I have nothing but admiration for both of those inspectors. But when we can't give raises to our employees, I really hate to give them to our contractors.
Was that amount of money in the contract that we had already agreed to?
No, that's an increase in their contract amount.
I think one of the other cost increases might have been moving the rental inspector's position from part-time to full-time.
right, which was discussed.
That's covered.
Because we discussed that.
Specifically $3,000. I can pull it out of here if you want to see it. But there is a specific $1,000 per contractor in the inspection budget. In addition to moving one inspector to full-time. And there was money allocated for that. I think it was $14,000.
What's the rationale for the $1,000 increase?
They were included when the budget reflected pay raises previously, to reflect that. So they can be taken out.
That can be taken out,
Yeah.
Okay. Would that satisfy you? If those are taken out?
Well, you'll see when I'm satisfied when we vote.
I'm guessing that was nothing more than either an oversight and or the fact that it was a contractor position, but either way, to be consistent, we can have that taken out.
Any other discussion or questions?
Do we miss anything?
Campbell.
Commissioner Campbell?
I was outside yesterday and someone came by and I was talking to them regarding the talk as to whether the city was going to raise all 5 mills. And it got me to thinking, so I thought, well, I'm going to go on a walk. So I decided to go to around my neighborhood. I live in precinct 2, but I also ended up talking to people in precincts 4 and through phone calls 5 and 6. And many of the people that actually even voted for the charter amendment said they were under the impression that the millage was going to go up incrementally over time. And they fully understood the plight that the city has been in. Regarding the ability to dig ourselves out of a hole faster by implementing all 20 mills, they said we've been in this hole so long, what difference does it make if the hole takes longer to dig ourselves out of as opposed to faster? So I thought it was interesting that even the people that voted for the charter amendment said they were far more in favor of going up incrementally as opposed to going up all 5 mills at one time, even at the understanding of what has happened and what will happen.
Excuse me, no comments from the audience, please. How many people did you talk to?
11. 7 of them were in precinct 2. Now I know that's not scientific by any means, but it was interesting to talk to these people.
Commissioner Bunton?
At one point, we had a HR person and an assistant. We had 2 people in HR, and we're just asking to have 2 people again back in HR. Is that the plan?
Right.
So we're just replacing somebody that we hadn't replaced because we couldn't afford to replace them.
Accurate, yes, at a lower rate of pay.
At a lower rate of pay, okay. In regards to the 5 mills all at one time and lesser, whatever, the only one that as I recall, would have actually helped us is go 19 mills, and that would only take us 2-3 years. It's kicking the can down the road. And I would be in favor if we can get our budget situated and straightened out to go with the 5 mills now, and then be honorable enough and honest enough that when we get to a point where we can afford to, let's back it back down and then cover that. But we have a deficit. We have a deficit to cover. I would vote for backing it back down. I'm going to be honest with you folks. I hear the rhetoric in the audience, but I would be in favor of backing it back down once we have. But we have been spending into our fund balance for years, and we've reduced it to the point where if something happens in this city, catastrophic, we have no money to get it, and we can't bond it. We can't get a bond issue for it because we're in a position financially that they won't give us unless it's a very extremely high rate. Is that about right, Marilyn?
No, with this budget. This budget will change that because we will fund the retirement fund, which will then allow us to bond. Am I correct?
Right, but we also had the water due fund that we couldn't meet the reserves in. So that's another holding point right now, is that because of the water reserves, we didn't meet our water reserves last year.
And we're iffy as to whether we're going to meet them this year.
Yeah.
Correct. There's a possibility that we will, and if things go well, and then we would have the opportunity to borrow. But if it doesn't, then we'll still have that issue for one more year until we get that straightened away. And part of the additional fund balance is, just keep in mind, the fund balance is not all liquid and not all cash sitting around to pay bills. There's lots of not readily available as cash items in that fund balance that's reflected, so it's not a true cash balance on hand. And that's some of the issue that would be addressed by the 20 mil scenario. We would have a better cash flow situation and not have those kind of issues.
I would think that there's some merit in what Commissioner Bunton said. If we raise the millage every year or every couple years, that's not going to be popular either. It seems like it's better to raise it the full 20 mils, and then when we are able, if property values increase or our fund balance increases enough, then we could begin lowering it.
Remember Oakland County just did that.
Okay, that's great. Commissioner Minster just mentioned that the Oakland County just did that. They lowered theirs. So it's not an impossible thing to be done. And again, if I have a say on it, I would definitely say when we get to a point where we can afford to do so, we lower it, because it's unfair to continue to gather this money when we actually are above where we need to be. That's logic. That's just common sense.
Yeah, I think we'd be a lot more popular lowering it than by raising it every year or two.
Yeah.
I'd also like to remind everybody that all of us have to pay the full 20 mills too. We're not exempt from that. So we're not asking you to do anything we're not doing ourselves. Did someone else have a comment?
To the city manager, the Headley rollback, can you reflect on what type of economic conditions must be present in order for that to, because I don't want to have us doing a tongue-in-cheek speculation, much like we're having right now with the public saying, well, you people, and I'm the only person that didn't support this method of millage increase, and so I was very aware when people were saying things. I didn't take mental notes, but it was a very popular commentary from this body to say something, to speculate, well, we don't have to necessarily levy the entire millage increase. So, but to your credit, your research reflects the documentation that was presented to the public.
Right.
So seeing and hearing are two different things, but if you could give some additional clarification on the Headley rollback.
Marilyn, if you could answer for me, when was the last time we had a rollback?
I'd almost think it was like 7, 8 years ago when we started dropping with the taxable value. We haven't had a Headley rollback because it depends on the amount of construction we have in town, additions, deletions. It's a formula that the assessor works on, and then the equalization department. So it's been years since we've had one.
And probably would speculatively would be.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the short-term horizon
Yeah.
on that. I mean, I would love to be wrong, frankly, because it would mean that our property tax collections are going up by a larger amount than we anticipate. But the current fiscal year, property tax collections are forecast to increase by about, was it 1.016%, so just
Right.
over 1%. So that's where we're at in terms of what we're forecasting in the future, and I don't think anything like that's going to impact a Headley rollback, so it'd have to start to become much larger than that in the future. So, and we'd have to have additional activities probably to make that happen as well. So,
Right, and don't forget that in 2017, the equalization department has stated that we will lose 40% of our personal property. With that law that was voted in a couple of years ago for the personal property tax, we will lose 40%.
The personal property
On the
tax is paid
industrial-
by businesses.
Right, and that's on the industrial portion of the buildings in Mount Clemens.
How many dollars is 40%?
That was, for the general fund. Oh, I don't.
You want my budget book?
yeah, maybe.
It's not in there actually, because we just found out before. Charges for services. It was like $224,000 we'll lose in 2017.
So speaking to that, gradual incremental increase and all that, if we experience that kind of a loss, it's, the gradual nature of that would potentially be in play, and that's an issue for us.
Yeah, currently, the personal property on businesses, that if your taxable value is $40,000 and less, you no longer have to pay personal property taxes. But in 2017, that's where the industrial portion kicks in.
I believe that when we were having discussions about this before the vote, it was stated that even with the full 20 mills, most people would still be paying less taxes than they were back in 2007. Is that still?
That was part of the factor that was included in the discussion at that time. Yes, that with that increase, still potentially people were experiencing less taxation than they were before the decreases in property values.
To the city manager, the position in community development, which you allude to as being a liaison to the DDA,
Yes.
is that reflection of the productive conversation we had, I don't know, when was it, just a few days ago?
Yes. And by liaison, I'm looking probably internally, we would make the decision probably that Brian Tingley would obviously have oversight over that position and would have the more of a role vis-a-vis the DDA in terms of actual professional responsibilities, but that position would support day-to-day interactions and putting together agendas and things of that nature, as well as doing some of the legwork out in the community. One of the things that we talk about is not having a very good handle on what our vacancy rate is, and conducting a study of that with this person's time would be something that would be on our short-term horizon for that kind of position. Brian's got some ideas for what he would do with that kind of a resource if it was approved.
Would that be jointly funded between the DDA and the city?
Correct. And we would approach the DDA on it from a 2/3, 1/3 kind of a standpoint. That way the majority of the cost and control of the position resides with the city. That's what we would talk with the DDA about, correct?
Okay, and where are we at with that discussion with the DDA? Because
I mean, is it in the budget it's already at that figure, the 2/3, 1/3 is assumed.
Wouldn't it require kind of like a memorandum of agreement between the two?
I'm sure we can work it out, because if you recall, the prior tax capture split, the 2/3 of it had gone back to the city. We've upped it to 50%, 50%, so that's kind of part of the decision-making on that. So,
what's your timeline for this position to come to fruition?
if we got approval for it, I'm looking to do some advertisement for it immediately, essentially, and try to move on it as quickly as possible. And that's going to free up, as I think has been mentioned in the past, more of Brian Tingley's time to do more of that economic development activity as well, and more coordination with the DDA and more support of the DDA and beyond the DDA for economic development as well.
Any other discussion? Are you ready to vote? Roll call, please.
Actually, I'm going to ask if, would it be inappropriate to take a recess? There's nothing that stops me from speaking with one of my colleagues. I'm looking to be productive here. I'm not looking to
I'm going to defer to the city attorney here.
If you want to make a motion and vote on it,
I would like a 3-minute recess, please.
How much? How long?
Give me 3 minutes.
Support.
Okay, roll call.
Raker,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill,
No.
Menster.
Yes.
Yeses.
Okay, there will be a 3-minute recess. Okay, during the recess, there was a request from Commissioner Raker that we allow Mr. Saff, I'm sorry, to talk about, to make.
One of the things that has been an ongoing concern of mine has been doing the same thing, much like one of the residents has been talking about, and I've spoke with Steve Sapp over the years many times. I spoke with the city manager over the last week, and how we can do business differently as far as a collection, a coordination between the city and the DDA. And I'm pleased with the interaction I had with the city manager in response to that. Mr. Saff is here to potentially speak on that issue and other things, DDA, and I would like the public to have the opportunity to hear what you have to share with us, please.
Good evening, Steve Saff Jr., 68 Clinton Street. The DDA has undertaken its traditional role from an event standpoint with, I think, great professionalism and great success over the past year again. We're bringing events into town, we're highlighting the community. When you talk about the fact that this becomes the sole social or event methodology that allows people to interact with each other and allows exposure for our businesses downtown, I think that we're doing a good job in regards to getting feet on the street from that perspective. When we're talking about plans for the future, we've taken a very detailed look over the past couple of board meetings discussing how we can bolster the DDA's position in an effort to help market and help identify those landlords or those buildings that want help to either help get the buildings sold or get them filled. And we looked at 3 basic plans, or actually 4. We looked at the Main Street program, which is a national program that develops certain subcommittees that reinforce events, promotion, and marketing. We looked at the Women in Business program that was developed by the events coordinator. I don't know if you recall the press that was generated in the journal papers highlighting the fact that we've got a core of business owners that are women-owned businesses, and trying to create a drumbeat about the join the sorority of women and utilize their experience and come to town and bring your idea here. We looked at a facade grant program, and we had the big question mark, what else is out there? And then the 4th thing, and what we are pursuing right now, is we are talking to the Macomb County Economic Development Department in an effort to get some targeted efforts from them. We're told that the county has a baseline service that they afford all communities, and I appreciate that, but the baseline service really hadn't given us much focus or much attention. So we acknowledge that if working with Steve Cassen's office, there's going to be an expense. If we go to them and ask them for details or ask them for a plan, that we'd have to incur an expense for that. So we're prepared to do that, assuming that we can get something that we can demonstrate and measure over a period of, say, 24 months to see how effective something can become. And interrupt me if you have any questions, but we've met twice already with Mr. Cassen's office in a brainstorming, looking at what they've done for other communities on a targeted basis. I think that an important thing for us is when we look at, as business owners, it's more common for someone to pick up details about a community, whether it be Mount Clemens, whether it be Utica, whether it be Sterling Heights, and they look at the demographics. They look at the statistics that are gathered federally as far as education levels, income levels. They look at traffic patterns on the streets where they may or may not locate a business. And unfortunately, when we look at that information that's specific and unique to the city, it doesn't capture and doesn't reflect the transient traffic that we get during the day. And we learned that lesson recently with a business that decided not to come to town, unfortunately. And because of that, part of the conversation with Cassen's office is how do they try to demonstrate for us that transient traffic that comes in on a consistent basis Monday through Friday? How do we reflect some of the transient business that comes into our churches and into the community during the course of the weekends? How do we capture that information and complement what we already know about the city that people are receiving? So when
I just had a thought enter my head, and I have to say it before I forget it. If the county is offering everyone baseline services, they don't reside in every municipality. They reside here. So I would encourage you to leverage that. I don't know how you would monetize that, but I would encourage that rationalization. So we rate more for our buck than someone who is not the county seat.
The county is looking at this, and I think we're at a point where we're still trying to develop what they feel they can do for us and do for us effectively. And I'm very confident that based upon the conversation, they're going to take a look at this, and they're going to talk about the man hours that are going to be applied to it, and they're going to be talking about what resources they're going to dedicate. So they're going to be very specific about justifying what expense is going to come back to the DDA for those potential services. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at the annual report and the supplemental information that reflected business activity downtown over the past couple of years. This gave a greater detail, specific information about what we've been doing, what's happened, and also the second report talks about the businesses that have come into town, the businesses that have expanded, the businesses that have decided to move from one location to another but still stay within the city. We have 2 new businesses coming in right now into the Cherry Street Mall that we're excited about. We understand that as a result of the Made in Michigan event, that one of the vendors that participated fell in love with downtown, has been talking to a landlord about bringing a business that they had here as a temporary vendor as a permanent business.
Okay, I want to push this conversation along because you're talking about a lot of historical stuff. I want to talk about the future.
Okay.
The conversation I had with the city manager, were you able, the two of you able to have any conversation as far as like moving this joint position, joint funded position? Because my vote hinges on where you're going with this.
We have not talked about this since you have, but this has been a topic that's come up in the past in discussions directly with Mr. Tingley. The board has been aware of that this is something that has been thought of in trying to create someone that has, number one, the ability to offer Mr. Tingley more primarily some, taking some of the work away so he can focus on things that are deemed by this body and his office to be more focused, more worthy of his focus. But we would support and work with someone that can give us some resources too. And I think we've demonstrated more than on several different occasions that under this current board over the past several years, we're investing our capture back into the city. We're putting $90,000 into the TAP grant match. We're putting $15,000 into the expense for the master plan update. I think our board, and I don't think, I know, our board is not going to be looking at expenditures that don't have a concrete impact upon what occurs here on a day-to-day basis. And we're mindful that when you talk about marketing, marketing is not an exact science. Marketing has a bleed over. Marketing is going to be having an impact that goes beyond the defined boundaries of what occurs downtown, and we're excited about that.
I'm still not getting the warm fuzzy that the DDA, and I know this is kind of I'm driving my stick in the ground on this issue because it's the only way we're going to affect some kind of change, some kind of positive change. And it's not because I'm anti-DDA. I'm certainly not anti-economic development. I love it every time Commissioner Menser talks about aggressive economic development. But quite frankly, the same stuff that has been going on year to year, and you have to be your own best cheerleader. But I walk through town and their vacancy is through the roof, and your events aren't exactly packing them in.
I disagree in a sense, Mr. Riker, that the events become a methodology that have a repetitive basis that continues to keep the city and the name Mount Clemens in people's minds. It's not going to be a particular event. It's not going to be a particular weekend. It is a series of events that people point to and identify the fact that Mount Clemens is a place that has these alternatives and has these type of events and keeps people coming back. We were ecstatic about the fact that we had a event which one vendor came back and said, I'd like to find a place to open a business here in town. That's obviously the exception and not the rule, but we were very excited about that nonetheless.
Sure, I take that as a victory on your part. I'm not taking it away, but I want more for you, for Mr. Boone, for Mr. Snyder. I just don't think this conviction with going, and that's why I need a greater gravitation, greater buy-in to this concept.
I do not believe that you have a group of people that are more dedicated and
I'm not
committed.
I'm not questioning that at all. I'm talking about results.
Okay. You know, on a day in and day out basis, you have people that are making a living in this community. You have people that are paying property taxes in this community. You have people that are maintaining their buildings in general, just as you do with anybody else in a residential piece of property or commercial piece of property that care for it and maintain it. The people that are here are vested in it and they want to see things obviously move forward. We had, as I said moments ago, a lengthy conversation and debate at the board about different methodologies to pursue to try to be looking at how to encourage that marketing. And I've been tasked to work with the county by the board right now, and that's what we're doing. When we talk about this position with Mr. Tingley's department as far as a subordinate that would have a more of a direct contact with the DDA, we're encouraged by that. It's obviously in the preliminary stages, Joe, but we know that there's a need there that would assist Brian, but also coordinate with us to help us get more effective communication and more things done on a day-to-day basis.
And also, just to clarify too, I mean, it's not going to be in addition to any kind of work that's already been done by the staff that you do have, it's going to be focused on doing more economic
We don't have
development
any
work. That
staff.
staff is going to be correct. That's what I mean.
We've got an independent contractor that takes care of events and
Right.
a part-time person that does our social media and tries to build as much buzz as we can. I couldn't tell you a tweet from a, whatever they, the book face pages, and but that apparently, when we get that report on a monthly basis, to see that that traffic that's generated there, and if you talk to the business owners that get that direct contact from somebody, it apparently works and works very well. And that's one of our successes.
So I'm reassuring Commissioner Raker that this additional staffing is not going to have any kind of, it's not adding on to any work that's being done. It's new work that's being done for economic development, both in the DDA and beyond. So.
Yeah, I would, and again, this is, we talked about the fact that yes, the DDA would support the position. Yes, the DDA would have the ability to dedicate funding to help offset the expense of the city. But when you try to frame what this person will be doing, I think it gives us a unique opportunity to try to look at, focusing on some efforts to get together data to help maybe work with the county in relationship to what we talked about a moment ago as far as putting together that concrete information about that transient population.
Well, I'm encouraged by both statements from both the city manager and you. I'm not sure if we have everything that we have in place, need everything to push this, because I don't want to approve a budget and then we get around to it at some convenient time. And so I'm going to push this so that it happens before this budget gets approved.
One thing I've learned through the process is that I've failed my board in that I've not made an effort to come before you and perhaps present information or provide details on more of a regular basis. I've committed that I will show up here on a quarterly basis and generate a report or deliver a report to you and take the heat and answer any questions that may come up. So that's part of the takeaway from this process this year is that you obviously, and not you individually, but collectively, the board obviously needs to know more about what we're doing and how hard we were working as volunteers for and on the board.
And that's my point is when I hear that everyone is giving additional dollars, then it makes me think then maybe this model is not working all that well. And I hats off to you, to everyone that does that. But
it's not
that's
about
not
dollars, but
Excuse me, I think there was another question.
That's all small part of the, if it's a business decision. I own real estate in this town. I own a business in this town. Many of these people are my clients. If the DDA existed or not, very frankly, if somebody came to me and said, we've got an event and we want to do something, you're darn, I'm going to support it. The DDA gives us a structure in which to work in which to communicate and offer programming and planning. It offers us a platform that Jeff Wood can come to us and say he's got a TAP grant and how do we make this work, because the darn match money is not in the general fund right now. It's a methodology for us to communicate to the city that after the Emerald Theater closed, that the parking contractor working in the Roscop lot at 6 o'clock in the evening was not an effective methodology for taking care of a problem that no longer existed because the crowds weren't there, and if anything, it was a detriment. And we funded for almost a year, I think, $1,500 a month to help wean that down. And the DDA is just an organization that helps us codify and focus some of these things. I hope that it continues. I hope that we have your support. I'm committed to come again before you on a quarterly basis and report. But I think there'll be some people that you've got people that care about this town and selfishly care about their businesses and their employees and their customers that are going to be here. And just because people donate and their time and their effort and their hard dollars doesn't mean it's because of the DDA.
Well, in your defense, a gentleman stood there and made mention to it and kind of alluded to hey, we're so committed to it, we're doing this. So it
Yeah.
gave the impression that it was financially needed in order to do that. So if you're saying that's not the case, then I appreciate that.
It allows us is the coordination and the focus. To be able to have an event coordinator that can come to us and say, we've got an event here with WYCD radio and it's going to cost X number of dollars, but we've got to get a stage, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. And it helps us pull those elements together, Joe, which becomes the administrative side of it. That's the part.
I'm not convinced that this is ready just yet. We're almost there, but
it's only been under discussion actively for the last week.
Right.
So it's going to take more time than that to get it implemented. So what I'm telling you, when we're going to be advertising this shortly, is it's getting the thoughts together, getting exactly how it's going to flow. We're going to make Brian Tingley an executive director of the DDA. Because he's going to have added time available because of this position. Are we going to have that position act as some sort of a manager in relation to the DDA? Those kind of questions are up in the air, but those kind of things are the things that will be where the rubber hits the road. And we're committed to making the rubber hit the road, is what I'm telling you.
We would certainly look forward to this body's participation, of course, the board's participation, the DDA boards, as far as defining what those job duties and description is going to be for this person. Again, I'm repeating myself, we hadn't gotten to that part of the dialogue, but we certainly made the commitment to provide the financial support, and we look forward to working with someone that may fill that position, and I think it strengthens our commitment to work with the city, which I think may not have been identified as effectively in the past.
Excuse me, there was a question over here.
You sort of got into it a little bit, but I'd like to have you just explain to us what has the DDA done for the city of Mount Clemens in a financial manner.
Well, again, we talked a moment ago about marketing, and marketing is a difficult thing to tie down as a science. But if you look at the fact that we have offered to, again, assist with the matching funds for the upcoming TAP grant for the repair and replacement of the crosswalks to the tune of about $94,000. The city is going through its mandated 5-year update of the master plan. That expense, I think, was close to $45,000, and we've committed $15,000 to that. The city 2 years ago came to us and said that we are in difficult straits here, and the city captured 2/3 of our budget for a period of 2 years, and the finance director this year is requesting 50% of our budget. So the TIFA funds that are captured are being put right back into the general fund, over 2/3 over the past 2 years, which caused us in part to terminate the relationship we have with our full-time executive director. So we've contributed to the fact of removing those liabilities for the city, and also again have stepped up and pumped that money back in that was part of the DDA's collection under the TIFA capture. Michelle, help me here, please. Oh, in trying to identify and highlight our riverfront. We've put an advertisement in local boating magazines. Mrs. Weiss has been successful in getting boat clubs to come downtown every year now for the past couple of years. Granted, it's not a lot of money, but they're paying a rental fee, and they're coming into our downtown, and they're using our services. It's difficult. Anybody that's a boater gets in a boat and wants to come all the way up the Clinton River at no wake speed to downtown Mount Clemens is problematic. But if you get a group of boaters coming up as a group like this, we're custom made for that, and that's worked out very well. The effort to bring the farmers market back downtown on Wednesdays, that was a DDA effort that brought them back downtown, and this past year they were nominated and voted the most highest rated farmers market by Metro Times magazine.
Best farmers market.
And we were ecstatic to see that foot traffic and that coming back downtown. the calendar of events. This year we're undertaking a change in the format. Instead of just the one calendar for the year, we're going to publish the calendar at 3 different times during the course of the year, Mr. Button. And with that, there's coupons that'll be detachable, that our individual stores have an ability to advertise to help offset the cost that again drives people into town. Has everybody got their red key, their key to Mount Clemens, that gives them special discounts as residents? This is a program that again identifies that there's a special relationship that our downtown businesses seek to develop with our residents, strictly our residents, not the residents of Harrison or Clinton, just the residents of downtown Mount Clemens. And as part of that, we're asking the individuals that receive one of those cards to give us some details about the month of birth and their date of birth. And we're going to be giving them $5 gift cards on the Clem card to encourage them to come down and park and feed our meter and come down and use our stores. Obviously, back to the events, the investment that occurs and the coordination with other organizations that come into town. Friends of Mount Clemens on June 5th? 6th. June 6th are going to have their annual car show on Main Street. And we invest a lot of time and effort helping them and making sure that event works.
$109,000 that you mentioned earlier that you use for funding various things here in the city. Is that coming out of your budget, or is that something?
Well, there's a portion of the budget, obviously, that we draw upon for advertising and for events, but there's a very active effort to go out and raise funds. The Joan and Wade Weber Foundation donate $20,000, have for the past couple of years, and have committed again this year to help offset the expense of the fireworks. In making that relationship, Mrs. Weiss and I sat down in a conference room and basically got grilled by the team from the Weber Foundation wanting to know where the money was going to spend, what type of event was this, how it was going to come off, how were we getting the firework vendors. They pushed us to do some things, and I think it improved the event overall. As a result of this, we're working with Zambelli now, who has turned out to be a much better, I think, longer show, more colorful show, and a better show. The DDA took the initiative 2 years ago to approach the county to hold a party up on the deck of the parking structure. And as mentioned earlier, we're a bunch of volunteers. And fortunately, Oakland University came in and said, we like that idea, we want to do that. Oakland University brought in people from their Macomb County alumni. They had that place packed last year. Those are the type of things that we're attempting to do and attempting to put that focus on downtown. Michelle? Am I missing any big things? I'm sorry if I'm rambling, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up time, but...
Commissioner Menser, did you have a question?
Mr. Saff, is it possible to come up with a document that has deliverables and goals? You've mentioned a lot of things here today.
Well,
probably some of them we won't be able to remember, but it would be nice to have some economic development goals in mind for the city. You're working on attracting businesses to the city. Let's throw out a number. We hope to attract 2 businesses by the end of 2016.
All right.
I'd like to see some deliverables.
Okay, I'm going to be very blunt. I'm not going to put myself in a box. We're looking at alternatives. We're looking at methods that we haven't tried before, and we're talking to people that bring in expertise to us, with the example of the county. I'd love to take you for a walk around downtown, and sometimes I think I get too close to this. I can tell you about every building in our district and the situation that we have from building to building. Huntington Bank has a building on the corner of Cass and North Main that they have for rent. They don't want to sell the building right now for some reason. They won't lease it to another financial institution, and they will not allow anybody to divide up that building. Now, who's going to use that building, and what marketing is going to fill that building? You've got a difficult situation in some of these properties. Then we've got landlords on the other side of the coin that have acknowledged that they have to make some personal sacrifices. We have one landlord that's just dropped his his rent per square foot to $7.50 before the application of triple net fees. So we've got this balance, and it's on a day-to-day basis, you walk a fine line of trying to bring some services to people, but having to acknowledge that these are private property and privately held. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, I mean, to use the old phrase. But we have many people downtown that are dedicated. Mr. Boone's made another investment in this community. We've got people here that are still trying very hard. If we can look at this from a different perspective and try something different as far as the county, we're committed to take a look at that. If you ask me to do a measurable, my measurable view is to come to you on a quarterly basis and tell you what we're doing. If you ask me to commit that I'm going to bring 2 businesses to town every 6 months, you know, that's going to happen as long as we continue to keep a focus on here, on what we're doing downtown. Does that answer?
That answers the question, but
if it was my,
you have goals that the DDA is pursuing that we're not aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And coming to us on a quarterly basis, I think, is going to be very helpful. I think it's going to renew the relationship between the DDA and this board, and give us information that, you know, that we have not been privy to thus far. So what I was looking for was some kind of, I would imagine that you can handle that in a quarterly report. Tell us about things like the Huntington Bank building and why there's no movement on there, and what continued efforts, you know, you're going through with, you know, with aggressive marketing with Mr. Casson and his team, who are all very highly skilled. And I think if we had more information shared, I think that it would be a less fractious relationship.
I agree, and again, I've apologized for not doing a better job of that during my tenure on the board. But on the other hand, our board meetings are open to the public. We encourage you to show up. Now that...
when are your board meetings, please?
I'm sorry?
When do you have your board meetings?
Our board meetings are the first Wednesday of every month.
At what time?
At 3 p.m.
Precisely.
Excuse me. Thank you.
You might need to change those in order to get some participation.
We've discussed that in the past, and we have business owners that attend that meeting. We have business owners that are downtown that come across the bridge. That works. That happens. I think one thing that maybe we could do is maybe a joint meeting with this body.
We have done that in the past.
Yeah.
We've had joint meetings.
Yeah, I mean, that might be something. At the end of the day, we're I think, a committed group of people that are doing our best. You've got an element of private property, private ownership. We're not benevolent dictators. We can't tell these people what to do. We try and I think are doing a damn fine job with the resources that we have, with the volunteers that we have, and I think we've committed and continue to commit that we're working with the city and providing resources that are complementary and not conflicting with the city's objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saff. Are we ready to vote now?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Go ahead.
My concern here is I would be much more comfortable to have this issue ironed out in rapid succession and then vote on this budget. Now I know that would take another meeting, and I am prepared to do that. But I want us to have this wrapped up tight before we have a vote on this.
If I can, just to say in terms of wrapping it up, we're going to advertise for the position. I can advertise for the position without some of the details being worked out. So I mean, I can proceed with the advertisement, commit the city to, from that standpoint, from the perspective of demonstrating we're looking to fill up the position, and the internal stuff is internal stuff. I mean, you know, the assignment that we give to the person is going to be changed basically depending on some give and take that comes here.
But the mutual understanding between...
I mean, the mutual understanding is he's already spoken to the fact that they're prepared to fund the position. We're prepared to fund our portion of the position. We're both understanding that this is going to have an economic development focus. It's not going to be an additive to any existing efforts that they're doing. It's completely different focus for that position, and freeing up more time for Mr. Tingley to have that kind of a focus. And I mean, that's that's going to be governed from our side of it, in terms of what the day-to-day responsibilities of the position are, but they're going to have some say-so in terms of what kind of work gets done in terms of relating to supporting of the DDA and those kind of things. And I'm talking about from the nuts and bolts, the meeting minutes and all that kind of stuff.
I think because, I mean, this is somewhat of a negotiation, and we have the opportunity to put in place something that I think has been long overdue, and I think it needs to be put in place before we vote on. That's one person's opinion.
Commissioner Menser?
I just have a question for Mr. Tingley. Brian, will this and let me again state, I am thrilled that we are going to have a dedicated economic development person in your office. I think it's been highly needed. But my question is this person, although we've talked about this person working with the DDA, will this person also be working outside of the downtown boundaries? Will they be, concentrating on what's going on up at Groesbeck and Cass, what's going on down here on Harper and Crocker and other areas of our city?
That's correct. In my conversation with the city manager, that's been the focus of our discussion about this new position, is that it would focus on economic development citywide. And of course, there would be a component of that focusing on the downtown, but the position would be citywide in terms of its focus on economic development.
Commissioner Bunton, did you have your hand
Thank you,
up?
Brian.
No, not really. I just, well, what is it that we have to work out on this? I mean, the structure is created, and we'll fill in the blanks as it develops. I don't know what is it that you're asking to work out.
I think some of those details need to be worked out in advance, just so that they are worked out and understood well in advance, so things are underway and we're getting the most.
What details are you looking at?
The details as far as the roles, the responsibilities, how much time, who's answering to who, levels of supervision.
That's supervisional thing. That's what our
and
city manager is supposed to work out.
And we need
I think that's part of the negotiation that normally takes place with the city manager. I think we are exempt from that. We don't need to deal with that.
Yeah, that's an administrative.
But I would like, here's the thing, is I can vote no on this, which I don't want to. And I don't know how it's going to, I really don't know how it's going to go. I want to vote yes on this, but I want to make sure that everything to maximize the efficiencies and effectiveness of this new position are in place. And I'd be more comfortable doing it now rather than later.
The new position is going to be a city employee.
Correct.
Correct? So the city will be directing, setting out what that employee is going to be doing. That employee will be answering to the city.
That's the purpose of the funding formula.
Right. The funding, as I understand, it just came up this week. But as I understand it, the DDA has agreed they will commit a certain number of dollars to fund the salary of that person.
And that certain number needs to be identified.
They're not going to be running what that person is doing. The city's going to be doing that. So I don't really know what details. I'm sure that we can have a written agreement with the DDA where they commit to fund X% of that person's salary. But it's going to be our employee, not their employee.
We're going to make sure that there's some proportionate value to the DDA, obviously, for the contribution that they're making. But fundamentally, Mr. Murray's comments are correct in that we're going to be driving the day-to-day responsibilities and the focus of that position and that person that ultimately fills that position. So, and trust me, not only do I not need additional clarification of what you want from the position, but it's exactly coinciding with what I want from the position, which is economic development. We're looking to foster an environment that's going to encourage existing businesses to stay in the city of Mount Clemens, existing businesses to expand in the city of Mount Clemens, and to bring new businesses to the city of Mount Clemens. That's going to be the focus of the position. I can assure you.
My point here, though, is the level of funding is going to attract the caliber of candidate, and that agreement should be had before we approve this budget, is how I feel. I want to approve it, but that is the one thing that is going to create buy-in from the DDA. How much are you willing to put in? That's what needs to happen.
Hasn't that been specified?
They said at ballpark of $20,000 is what it's going to be looking for. So $60,000 expense on the position based on what we're projecting to fill the position at. $40,000 salary, $20,000 benefits. Rough estimate is probably going to be a little less than that, but that's a rough estimate.
Are you authorized to say yes, that your board will facilitate?
I'm not, but I would, from a historic perspective, make the reference that any time that the city has come to us, any time that there's been a request for hard dollars, this board has approved it. Every time that there has been a need expressed to us that has to do with nothing related to the DDA, we've supported it. You're coming to us now with a specific asset that may have some work that encourages our mission. So I don't doubt that we're not going to have any difficulty at all approving this. I can't say so officially, but again, Joe, we've talked about this as a board. Mr. Tingley has talked to us about this. This is not a surprise, and I probably shouldn't say yes.
No, not for you, Mr. Saff, sorry.
Commissioner Menzer.
What I would like to put forth at this time is a motion to delay until the first session of June the vote on the budget. That will allow the budget to reflect the elimination of the increases for the inspectors. It will allow City Manager Brown and Mr. Murray and Mr. Saff and the DA board to come to some kind of, written agreement that will satisfy your questions. And it will also allow Mayor Blash and Mayor Pro Tem Blash and Mayor Dempsey to be present for a vote.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, I guess we're ready. We need to vote on Commissioner Menzer's motion.
Hunton.
No.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
No.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Well, I guess the motion passes. So we will turn to 9B, adoption of the resolution revising the 2016 fiscal year water rates.
Move to approve the adoption of the resolution revising the water rates and changes as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
Can you please disclose what the rate
The resolution is to revise the current water rates for the 2016 fiscal year water fund budget. The recommended rates of $3.34 for consumption and $8.71 for monthly minimum have been calculated using the annual water consumption in the 2016 fiscal year expenditure budget to include bond disbursements. The 2016 fiscal year budget for the water fund and the increase of rates has been reviewed during the city's budget workshops.
What's the delta, increase up or down?
5 cents for the consumption,
I think it was
96 cents for the monthly minimum.
Correct. So going from 329 and then 96 cents up to the 871.
So full disclosure, this is an increase, and so please, for the public, rationalize why this has to happen.
We mentioned earlier the situation we're having in terms of cash reserves and the issue with being able to borrow that we're experiencing. This would address that and allow us to have that in place.
Also, our usage is down.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we've talked about in prior budget messages that I didn't cover and the finance director reminds me of is the fact that our water usage is down from the standpoint of a variety of factors. People can continue to conserve and to reduce their water bill. That reduces consumption. We don't have the ability to say, well, because we're having less sales, we're going to cut back on our fixed costs. Those fixed costs are there. And when you're getting less on the usage side of things, in order to make up that deficit, you can raise the rate to offset that loss, and that's what we're doing partially.
And we have to have that reserve in place in order to be able to bond and
meet our operating
borrow.
requirements that we put out to the state, other handlers that we have in this function. That's part of
And
the
also,
process.
don't forget on these rates is the 15 cents or I think it's 17 cents for the deficit elimination. that we told the state of Michigan we would do also. We had a 5-year deficit elimination plan in place.
Do you have anything as far as a comparison to what Detroit customers are paying in comparison to what we're paying? Off the top of your head, do you have an idea?
No, I wouldn't have I don't know the Detroit Water, the other customers. I know that we're all in the same area, but I couldn't tell you exactly what other communities charge rates. And then with the new rates from Detroit.
It would have voted positive for us, so that's why I was just trying to make this vote a little bit more palatable.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, roll call.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Agenda item 9C, request for approval to enter into a site access agreement with AECOM. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the attached site access agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and the contractor as presented.
Support.
AECOM has requested permission to perform an environmental investigation and assessment on behalf of ExxonMobil Global Services Company on city right-of-way located on the west side of Mary Street and a portion of Grand Avenue. AECOM wishes to investigate the property to see whether it has been impacted by a former Pulse Oil facility located at 14 Mary Street, which was leased by ExxonMobil. This facility was utilized for bulk storage and commercial distribution of petroleum-based fuels. The proposed site access agreement would allow AECOM permission to enter the property to install monitoring wells and take samples from the property, provided they restore the site as close to its current condition as possible.
Any questions or discussion? I have a question. Does any of this involve residential property at all? Or?
No, it's
No.
our right-of-way, which
Okay.
is the area from the sidewalk, by the, adjacent to Mary Street. And then there's a small portion of property on Grand Avenue that we own, which is part of the train depot property.
Okay. Thank you. Ready to vote? Roll call?
Hill.
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item 9D, resolution supporting a charitable gaming license for the Friends of Macomb County Veterans Treatment Court.
Move to adopt a resolution in support of a charitable gaming license for the Friends of Macomb County Veterans Treatment Court.
Support.
The Friends of Macomb County Veterans Treatment Court would like to hold a 50-50 raffle at the 5th Annual Lalonde Charity Golf Open on July 19th, 2015. Proceeds from this event will benefit the Friends of Macomb County Veterans Treatment Court, a 501c nonprofit organization that provides aid to veterans that suffer from issues related to military service that are involved in the criminal justice system. In order to hold the raffle, it's necessary for the organization to obtain a charitable gaming license from the state of Michigan, and the state requires a resolution be approved by the local government subdivision in which the organization conducts its principal activities, that the organization is a recognized nonprofit organization operating in the community. A copy of the standard state resolution is attached. The commission approved a prior resolution for this organization on August 19th, 2013.
Any discussion, questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes. Agenda item 9E, approve purchases and payment of invoices.
Move to approve purchase and payments of invoices as presented.
Support.
Any questions or discussion?
I just had a question about the Ken's janitorial service. I understand he does a lot of things for the city. I'm not clear what his hourly rate here is, other than it's a mixed rate.
Yeah, there's lots of different charges that are reflected in there, Marilyn. I don't even care to try to take any kind of a stab at summarizing it. I mean, there's a lot there.
We just pay him different rates for different types of work. Is that basically it?
Yes, because he also works for community development and boarding up the city. As we can see, it's general building and maintenance, which is the cleaning of City Hall. He charges $13 per hour. The parks is also $13 per hour, which is over to the community center and cleaning that place. Same $14 for the dial ride, and on down for the other departments for parking, sewage, and water.
Is this an increase in an hourly cost from his?
No.
No?
This has
He's
been the
maintained
same
it, right?
contract for years. As you see, it goes back, well, we've always had Ken. And the last time we've done the 5-year, and it's still the same price from back then.
I'm good.
Okay, you ready to vote? Roll call, please.
Raker,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item 9F, which was previously 10F of the consent agenda, resolution to adopt 2015 to 2020 Macomb County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the resolution to accept the proposed Macomb County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2015 through 2020.
Second.
No. I'm missing something here. The city needs to adopt the updated Macomb County Hazard Mitigation Plan in order to be eligible for hazard mitigation or flood mitigation assisted funding. The plan was developed by the Macomb County Office of Emergency Management as a countywide jurisdictional all hazards plan that addresses the needs of the county and each individual city, township, or village within the county. The plan must be approved by each local jurisdiction in order for the to be fully compliant and recognized as the official county hazard mitigation plan. The updated plan has been attached under separate cover and replaces the 2010 to 2015 plan. I apologize.
Commissioner Menzer.
This is the book. This is that plan, 306 pages. I just wanted to say a couple of things about it. Number one, I work in the building with the county's emergency management department, and Peter Locke of that department told me that this plan was designated by FEMA as one of the most comprehensive, clear, concise plans that they have ever seen. They had nothing but good things to say about it. This plan covers, for those of you, that don't know what it does, it covers civil disturbances, it covers drought, earthquakes, energy emergencies, extreme temperatures, structural fires, water fires, dam failures, flooding, hazardous materials. In this plan, it talks about some of the most dangerous intersections in Macomb County. Number 9 is Cass and Grospec. Last year, Cass and Grospec was number 10, so we've moved up. It talks about lightning-related deaths, and people make a lot of jokes about it being the golf course. It's not. It's open ball fields, and it's under trees. 28 deaths in Michigan were from from lightning strikes on open ball fields. The other really interesting thing, and I had a little talk with Captain Shipman about it. Captain Shipman was very instrumental in putting this thing together. In this plan are specific mitigation plans specifically for the city of Mount Clemens. What happens if somebody, attacks our water treatment plant, or if chemicals get out? There's a plan in place for that, and there are massive documents in this folder for that. There is a map in here that shows that the city of Mount Clemens, and in fact I found out today, it goes to 24 mile. The 50-mile radius from nuclear fallout from Fermi goes all the way to 24 mile. So the city of Mount Clemens is in that radius. And you know what? There's a plan in here for that. So I just wanted to point out that this is a very important, very comprehensive document that has received accolades from federal departments.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Roll call?
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Bunting.
Yes.
Okay, city manager's report.
I was having a computer difficulty, so bear with me a moment.
Okay.
That's what my source was the last time. Master plan's update status. The recommendation for an award on this bid project will be on the June 1st, 2015 agenda. Strategic planning process update. SEMCOG has provided a draft document for review, which is based on the work sessions held by Mayor and Commission. SEMCOG will receive the feedback provided by Mayor and Commission on the draft, incorporate appropriate changes and/or edits, and get in touch with city administrations to schedule a presentation of the strategic plan at an upcoming commission meeting, most likely on June 1st of 2015. Regional Fire Consolidation Study update. The bid award has been made to Tri-Data through Macomb County Purchasing. A kickoff meeting has been held which covered review and updates of the timeline for this project. Participating communities, including the city, are busily assembling and providing information that has been requested by Tri-Data. Individual meetings with Tri-Data and community representatives are scheduled for next week. That would be this week, and in fact, mine was today. Activity on this important study is ramping up with October 2015 as the projected completion date. The final item that I have is mass transit evaluation process for Macomb County. The Regional Transit Authority, or RTA, is holding several open house events across the area to discuss how to design and improve public transit for the region. There is a Macomb County event scheduled as follows: May 18th, 2015, from 1 to 7:30 p.m. Macomb Community College at the Lorenzo Cultural Center and Community Hall. Address is 44575 Garfield in Clinton Township. These open house events, and I emphasize this in the report, are designed to obtain as much public input as possible from as many sources as possible. So in other words, they're looking for feedback of individual people that live in the area as to what they would like to see from an improved public transportation network. The RTA website has more information on this and other open house events and the RTA activity in general. The website is www.rtamichigan.org. So if you'd like to, care to please visit that website. You'll see information about the different public events that they're having, the different open houses, as well as the other activity that the RTA is conducting with the idea to implement potentially improved public transportation options for the area based on the feedback they get from these open houses and other events. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the city manager? I do have a question, since we all had to miss the one that was held today. Do you know of any other open house events that are?
Yeah, there's one for each of the counties, and I believe there's one downtown as well. So those are the events that I'm aware of. I don't have the information in front of me. I see I can probably grab it. If you bear with me for a moment. See how lucky I am here. I've been having a few difficulties with the laptop this evening, so bear with me for a moment.
Well, perhaps you could just
Yeah,
send us an
doesn't
email
look good,
if you
so.
find anything.
Yeah, I'll provide an update and give you the individual dates. The one in Macomb County is the one that I had the information on, but the other information is on the website, and I'll be able to send that to you after we get out of the evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioner comments. Let us start with Commissioner Campbell.
Well, one, the man that was here from the DDA talking about painting a paintbrush over people, saying that none of us have ever been down there. That's not true. I'm no stranger to downtown, and whenever I voted on issues regarding the DDA, I've gone down there on several occasions and talked to business owners. So I would just like to set that record straight. Regarding the budget issue, I guess it's a good thing that we'll be able to continue and have the input of the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem at the next meeting as to their feelings on things. Thank you.
Commissioner Raker.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief. This is going to be the last meeting that the viewers at home and residents here will be at before Memorial Day. So I just ask you to reflect on this upcoming weekend. It's not just about celebrating, it's about actually reflecting and memorializing those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the face of our nation's enemies for the freedoms that we take for granted. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer.
Well, as Commissioner Campbell said, I too am kind of disappointed that Mr. Schneider left because, you know what, I've been in his shop. I took our 6-year-old, I've shown you guys pictures of my little man. I took him in there and I bought him stuff. And out of his entire shop, what do you think that my little man wanted? Remember, he's 6. He wanted a fart maker, and I bought him one in Mr. Schneider's shop, and we spent quite a bit of time in there. And I think that you all remember that on a regular basis, about every 6 weeks, I give you lists of where I have been downtown. So off the top of my head, over the last month, and in fact today, I had lunch at Bath City Bistro, where I had a nice conversation with City Attorney Murray and with Mr. Saff. I have been in Bath City multiple times over the last month. I have been to Coco's, where I had actually oatmeal. I have been to Paperback Writers. I had a nice chat with Lisa and her husband that day. So we don't walk around town, or at least I don't walk around town with a billboard saying, hey, I'm a city commissioner, pay attention to me. I walk down there because I'm a resident of the city and because I'm a customer. So I wasn't very happy with his remarks either. The Mount Clemens Public Library is participating again in a thing called the Michigan Activity Pass Program. It offers library card holders daily passes to explore hundreds of statewide destinations for free. It includes state parks, recreation areas, cultural attractions. For some examples, Cranbrook, the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit, the Sea Life Aquarium at Great Lakes Crossing. Those tickets are like $15. So if you want to go there, go to the library first. Crocker House, Michigan Science Museum, Algonac State Park, Lakeport, Belle Isle. Free with a library card, and the library card is free also. I mentioned before, the Wall That Heals is in Clinton Township this week. This is a replica of the Vietnam Memorial's Wall in Washington, D.C. It was last in the county in 2010. The open ceremony is Thursday at 6 with the rifle volley, the singing of the national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance, and a blessing of the wall by the Native American Veterans Association. Names of the 149 fallen from Macomb County will be read Friday at 7. Closing ceremony, Memorial Day at 4. I think it's a fitting place to honor our veterans, and keep in mind that Mount Clemens has approximately 42 to 45 100% disabled veterans that are exempt from property taxes. So we have veterans here in the city that we should be honoring also. Remind you that the farmers market is now open Fridays and Saturdays from 7 to 1. And I want to say also to Donna Barrett, who phoned me after our last city commission meeting. Donna, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for your comments. It's really good to talk to a resident of the city who can't make the meetings but participates anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bunton.
Just a brief comment, actually. Wished everybody a very safe Memorial Day weekend. Always remember the men and women that died in service, just that we can have the feeling of being protected. Remember also your friends and your relatives that have passed away as well. It's always good to have a day of remembrance. And for Commissioner Wisdom of the day or tonight, control your own destiny or someone else will. And that's by Jack Welch. With that, we'll say good night.
Okay, my turn. I just want to say a few words about the budget. I've been on the commission now for almost 10 years, and this is the most difficult budget time I ever remember going through. But we are on the cusp of having a balanced budget for the first time in several years, and so I am hopeful that the budget will be approved at our next meeting. I also would like to send get well wishes to Gary Blash. I hope he has a quick recovery and that we have a full commission at our June 1st meeting. Other than that, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks to all of you who have sat through this whole long meeting, and have a good evening and a great week.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Meeting adjourned.